love the support, and we will continue to get you guys great, valuable education, not only from NuView Trust Company, but from investors all over the country, like the person that we have on here today. And I will get to them in a quick minute. First, just some quick announcements. If you want to get my screen up there, Maggie. Quick announcements. If you are in the state of Florida, we are based here in Longwood, Florida. We are having our first client mixer of the year. We are very, very excited about that. There's still time to register. We've got over 150 people already attending, and we would like more. So we'll have some more information at the end of the presentation about how you can register for that. So that is for anyone who is in Central Florida or surrounding areas. And look for NuView to be out in your state as well as we get back on the road, as COVID starts opening up. We will be potentially in your area speaking at local real estate events. I know I'm going to Pennsylvania this Friday for the Real Estate Hackers event. So it's great that things are opening up in a safe way, because we love to give this information and education not only to people in Central Florida, but outside of Central Florida. And today we have a great topic. We're going to talk about how to invest in real estate strategically and passively using your self-directed IRA. My name is Nate Hare. I'm the Director of Sales here at NuView Trust Company. I'm also a CISP, a Certified IRA Services Professional. That is just a super nerdy term to say I know a lot about IRAs, not just self-directed IRAs, and what they can be invested in. But even though I have that experience, I always remind people that as an employee at a self-directed IRA company, we don't give tax, legal, or investment advice. It is up to you, the self-directed IRA owner, to do your own due diligence when it comes to investments. The power in a self-directed IRA is you get to make the decisions because you are the self. But we don't make your investment decisions for you. So the good thing about a self-directed IRA is you get to make all the investment decisions. The bad thing about a self-directed IRA is you get to make all the investment decisions. So make sure you're doing wise investments, and hopefully this free education gives you guys an idea of not only what types of IRAs can be self-directed, but what you can invest in. So I always bring up this quote because this is just such a powerful quote that I pulled from a Forbes article in 2020, very recent. The title of the article was, "If you have alternative assets in your IRA, watch out." So I was immediately drawn to the article to see what's so scary about self-directed IRAs. I've been in the business for almost a decade, and I don't think they're scary at all. And when you read the article, these are some of the blurbs that I pulled out of it. And it was basically based on a study that the IRS was doing on really how many people are using self-directed IRAs to hold alternative assets, and what were the value of those IRAs. So in the article, it states that we all know, about 2% of all IRAs held in America hold alternative assets. Now, alternative assets are things like residential real estate, commercial property, multifamily property, promissory notes, private equity, cryptocurrency. Traditional investments, the ones that aren't alternative, are just the things the other 98% hold, which are stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and CDs. So very, very little people hold alternative assets in their IRAs. But when you pick out the IRAs that are valued above $5 million, the interesting thing about those IRAs, 25% of the assets held in those large dollar IRAs hold alternative assets. So the rich already know how to use these IRAs and hold alternative assets and the power within them. So that's why I just think it's so powerful to share this information with our viewers, that a self-directed IRA, if used wisely, can be a life-changing event, not only for yourself, but for your future generations. So I want to get into and introduce the speaker. Charles Sells with the PIP Group. I'll tell you a little bit about what I know about the PIP Group, and then I'll let Charles kind of explain his background and get underway. But I know the PIP Group's been around since 2004, about the same time NuView Trust Company was also on the board doing self-directed IRAs. But I know the PIP Group because they're very, very familiar with self-directed IRAs, right? They do a lot of things in the space of real estate. They're based in South Carolina, but I believe they do things all over the country. They're very, very familiar with how to structure investments in certain ways that allow people to use their self-directed IRAs either as an active participant in the investment or a passive participant in the investment. So I thought, what better way to have somebody that is familiar with not only real estate, turnkey real estate, fix and flips, but is also very, very familiar in how you can use other people's self-directed IRAs to help fund some of these deals and provide good returns to the end IRA owner. So Charles, are you with me?
I am here.
How's it going, buddy? We haven't talked for a
good.
whole 5 minutes.
I know, right? It's
Yeah.
going great. It's going fantastic.
First, I want to thank you for joining us today from your home in South Carolina. Is that right?
Well, we're in my office, but yeah, we're in South Carolina.
Office.
We're in dumpy little Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. So
I wouldn't call it dumpy. I've been to South Carolina and North Carolina. I think it's a pretty beautiful place.
Yeah.
But, we'll get underway. Tell our audience who you are, what you do, and then jump into it. I've seen your slides. I'm anxious to get underway.
Yeah, so my name's Charles Sells. We've been in business. I got my start when I was 23 years old, actually, in this business. Got my start in tax liens, actually, and we've kind of been typecasted as that, but we've really been more in the fix and flip business for quite a number of years, and that's really what our nuts and bolts is these days, and that's what we're going to talk about today is investing passively in fix and flips and essentially buy and holds. We may have actually covered a lot of this back in September of 2020, but we're going to really dive deep into why it can be passive. And I'm looking behind me here, and I'm seeing that my wall of fame has turned into a wall of shame because it's all my wife's stuff back here now. She's taken over.
Well, hopefully she's not watching and she heard that, but
hopefully she's not watching. But no, we've been really busy, and she is our listing agent for all our fix and flips. So it just gives an idea of the volume we're doing. She's been one of the top 3 agents for the last 6 months in all of North Carolina and South Carolina as far as the volume of performance has been.
Wow,
so we keep putting her up on the board, unfortunately.
It's a family affair. Well, we talk a lot about getting family involved when we talk about IRAs too, and I'll save that for the end, but that's great. I'll let you get away with it. You got the controls?
Yeah, I got the controls. I'm just going to get my my screen up here real quick, and we will get rocking and rolling.
Just one quick announcement to you viewers. We'll take questions. If it's questions specific to Charles, we'll answer them as soon as he concludes his part of the presentation. And then I'll have a couple slides to tie it in with the IRA stuff and how you can actually use your IRA to invest in these types of investments. And then we'll take some more questions at the end there. So take it away, Charles.
All right, there we go. All right, so like I said, I started when I was 23 years old. PIP essentially was my formal organization back in 2004. We invest on behalf of institutional investors and individual investors. We provide services for investors anywhere from $50,000 to doing third-party audits for companies that invest in fix and flips and tax liens to as high as $150 million. That's primarily just an audit service we provide to make sure they're not cooking the books, if you will, and make sure that they're capturing all their redemptions and collecting all their data and properly doing what they're supposed to do. But primarily, as I said, our business is in fix and flips these days and buying distressed real estate to get great profits on behalf of our investors as well as ourselves. So we provide strategic passive investments. We've talked for a lot of years about investing in what we call recession-proof markets. And what happened with the whole COVID issue is we said, okay, recession-proof has now become how do you invest confidently in the midst of a pandemic, which we felt was kind of putting our money where our mouth was. And then we had what became just an amazing market that sprung up pretty much all over the country. And now we're talking about Biden's bubble. How long is this going to last? Is this just going to last, throughout the next year, throughout the next few months? So again, we're talking about specific areas, and we're going to talk today about Savannah, Georgia, which happens to be in our backyard. It was not a market that was always there. But we're going to talk about why it's such a good market and why it continues to grow and be a great market. And some of these things just we couldn't even have forecasted were going to happen. but it's great. And we're going to talk about why it continues to be great. And then we're going to get into some of the nuts and bolts of why it's going, regardless of what we think is going to happen with the economy, why it's going to continue to be a stable market, and why it's a passive market. It doesn't matter if it's in your backyard down in Florida, it's a great market to be in, regardless of what's going to come in the future. Now, there was a lot of doom and gloom. We did broadcasts on it. We did webinars on it where we just had no idea what was happening. The unemployment was through the roof, still kind of is. So nobody really knows what's going on right now. Everybody has their own opinions. You can't get a real good idea of what's going on, but these are some headlines that, I've kind of ripped out there that, you put into a Google search and this is what pops up. Now, the bottom one highlighted, as I told you, you asked me before we started the broadcast, have you been to the Blue Ridge Mountains? I said, no, we're actually the opposite. They call our area the Low Country because we're on the beach. So our market is showing no signs of slowing down. In fact, I bought my house. Obviously, I'm in distressed real estate. I've never paid retail for a home. I bought my house right before the shutdown started, and I bought it in a short sale. We renovated it during the shutdowns, and when the market started popping, my wife said, we need to sell, and we did. I said, we just finished renovating this place. I really don't want to move. We've only been here a year. I said, if you can sell this place for this ridiculous amount of money, which was 130% more than what we paid for it a year ago, I said, we'll sell. She got 130% for the house, so we sold. And that's just what we've been seeing across the board in everything that we're doing. So right now we're just in a buying frenzy. We're just buying as much inventory as we possibly can. And we're not seeing anything slowing down. So let's talk about fix and flips. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the same example over and over again. We're going to talk about fix and flips using, let's say your SDIRA as a cash purchase, and that is you're using your SDIRA. Let's say we're going to put $100,000 into this investment, and then we're going to look at it if we were to cash flow this property. You're going to buy and hold it, and then we're going to look at it if you were going to use part of your SDIRA as the investment using hard money. And then we're going to talk about, we're not going to use it as an example, but you can use your SDIRA as a hard money loan. What I mean by that is you can lend to an investor your SDIRA funds as a hard money loan, and essentially you collect interest only loans. It's secured by the property itself, and you essentially just get interest only payments back until they flip that property, and then you get the whole investment back. So you have essentially a number of different options, but I'm going to use the same property to kind of keep it simple for you. So this is your typical flip in Savannah, outdated, old green shag 70s carpet. This is what we do every day. This is your before and after of what we've done with the property. Just bring it up to date. This one was primarily cosmetics only. We did do an upgrade, which we did on behalf of the investor ourselves. We took it upon ourselves to make a decision, invest on behalf of the investor ourselves, our money, to get more money out of this particular investment. This is what we did. We had the garage here. The investment originally was just to update the garage and keep it a garage. But we knew we could get more money out of it because when we went into this and looked at it, we saw it already had plumbing. So the plumbing was already there, and we decided to convert it into an in-law suite. And we've done this a lot now in Savannah. What's great about it is you take this in-law suite, and when you have a new home buyer come in, which is usually going to be a first-time home buyer, that's our bread and butter, essentially. The first-time home buyer can own the home and rent out the in-law suite and essentially cover their home payment for the cost of the rent in the in-law suite. So we're doing this a lot now. But you see what we did with the garage space, what it was before and what it was after. The red box there just shows you essentially where that space was, where the car would have come in, and what it is now. And this is what we do every day. These numbers essentially show you what the cash on cash return was on this particular investment. How much was paid into the investment, what came out of the investment. So the cash on cash return was 17%. Now this is our internal worksheet. So we've got some personal information in here, which is total received from Jerry. Well, Jerry is our client. And you see total owed to PIP for expenses. Now, remember, I just said that we took it upon ourselves to make that garage space a mother-in-law suite. So we paid for that. Now we're going to recoup our expenses on that, but we're not going to hit the client for that. And the reason being is when you have an SDIRA, you may have limited funds in that SDIRA. So you may only have $100,000 in that. And if we take it upon ourselves to improve the marketability or improve the return on the investment, we're going to do that on your behalf, but we're not going to make you commit to that, if you will. So that's why that number is so high there. Now, let's say we're going to take the same investment and we're going to buy it to hold it and rent it, which right now is also great. Appreciations around the country are going through the roof. Yes, there's going to be a market correction. That is inevitable, but cash flowing these kind of properties right now is fantastic. And in Savannah, I'm going to show you some slides that show how fantastic they are. So we're going to talk about fix and flow. That's kind of my terminology. It's actually cash flow or buy to rent or fix to rent is what a lot of the hard money guys call it. I call it fix and flow. So again, same property, same numbers, the total amount paid for the property, and what happens if we cash flow it. Now, the national average for cash flows, what they consider good is a gross average rent of 8%. Now, these numbers were done pre-boom, if you will. These numbers were put together before COVID hit. So these numbers would actually be, or not before COVID hit, during COVID, but before the boom of everyone moving down and inventory going crazy, and people just looking for a place to live, if you will. So these cap rates would actually be a little higher. So again, I said national average is gross of 8%. That's doing well. These are 11.2% or 12.6%. And the differences here are if you were to rent the whole home plus the mother-in-law suite together, or if you were to split it up. So it's a matter of, do you want to mess with 2 tenants, get a little bit more, or mess with 1 tenant and get a little bit less? So that's what that is. Now let's take a look at what hard money, leveraging hard money can do for you. Now, the biggest question I always get is when we talk about leveraging hard money is hard money is expensive. Hard money is not expensive at all. People always say, okay, well, traditional banks are lending at 2% or 2.6% or 3.1%. First of all, traditional banks are not going to loan you money on a fix and flip. Second of all, hard money is very cheap. It's very easy to come by. There's not a lot of paperwork involved, and you can do it over and over and over and over and over again by only having your credit score checked 1 time. So essentially you have it checked 1 time every 6 months, and you can flip, you essentially get a credit line of how many times you can use that hard money over a 6-month period. So that's something to consider. But yes, it's more expensive than a traditional loan, but it's really inexpensive, and we're going to show you why. Rules of engagement. You've got to have a FICO score of 650 or better. They've actually just changed that. It's 630 now or better. Recent success in flipping homes. That is definitely one of the things they want to see. Usually it's an 80-20 loan ratio. That's changing a little bit as well. Rates can be anywhere from 6.5% to as high as 16%. Again, it's all based on your experience. They were up there at 16% right after COVID hit, these are publicly traded companies as well on the stock market. They are way back down now again. They're with us because of our experience. We're getting them about 7.9% right now. So things have really come back down a lot. Repair costs are reimbursed after completion. Now we're going to illustrate that a little bit more in just a minute. So I'll touch on that a little bit more later. Now, when we're talking about passively investing using a service provider, a company like PAP is a service provider. So when you partner with a service provider, you get that experience and you get to do it passively. So you're getting those low rates because they have industry recognitions of doing hundreds of flips. So you're getting a better rate. You're getting flexible loan terms. So those rates are going to be lower, as I just touched on as well. And you're getting more protections. And that is because the service provider has more skin in the game. Now this just changed. So when COVID hit, we pioneered with the hard money the opportunity to actually do this process. When things shut down, my marketing director, I sat down and said, hey, look, there's going to be a huge opportunity here. People are going to want to get out of the stock market. Self-directed IRAs are going to blow up because people are going to want to take more control. There has to be a way for us to partner with hard money, SDIRAs, and work together, leverage our experience, and do this, what I'm talking to you guys right now about. So we were the first ones to come to the table with hard money and say, how do we leverage our experience with this process and make this, meld this together and make it work? So what we had came up with, and investors are going to love this, is they basically said, and this literally just changed 30 days ago, is hard money said, if you guys are willing to guarantee or be the guarantor, if you will, on the loans, we'll do it. That basically means that we are responsible if the investment loses money. So we can partner with you as the client and the SDIRA custodian on the investment, as long as we are the guarantor of the investment. So it essentially takes all the risk, even though it's your investment, it takes all the risk off of you as the investor. So this literally was something that just they made us do 30 days ago. It was originally that they would do it, they would leverage our experience, but you would have to be the guarantor and the investor. They changed those rules on us because we were starting to pick up so much more volume than they expected this to do. So they changed those rules on us. So not only do we have more skin in the game, we are now the guarantor of the investment. So here's the power of leverage using that same investment. So we saw 17% cash on cash return, which is still great if you were to do a full cash investment on it. So now we're looking at it from the standpoint of leveraging the investment. So now your investment is only $27,000. The term's at a 9% loan rate. And this is just hypothetical. That investment was all cash. That investment was what I showed you in those first slides. So your total out-of-pocket investment on this was only $37,530. Very low. You know, even though hard money is quote unquote expensive, your cash on cash return on this is a whopping 78.47%. So as an investor, rather than having the opportunity to invest in one property for $100,000, by leveraging, now you can do 2 or 3 investments and at the same time rather than doing one. So the power of leverage is astonishing, and thanks to COVID, we have pioneered an opportunity that essentially didn't exist before by being able to do this. Was hard money out there before? Yes, absolutely. But to be able to meld all these processes together and these by being able to leverage our experience and your SDIRA funds to invest passively, you get to do it this way. Now, again, remember the caveat here, and we're going to show it again in another slide, is expenses can be built into the loan as well. But you have to have the liquidity in your personal funds. So what they're not going to do is they're not going to look at your SDIRA funds as being the qualifying funds for the investment. So you have to have something in your personal side too, whether it be a mutual fund, a savings account, a checking account, it doesn't matter. We're going to look at that again in a minute. So the repair funds and the investment funds has to be somewhere else. You can use the SDRA funds for the investment, but the hard money is not going to recognize those. So the repairs go out to the investment. Then you draw on those. So we do the repairs. If it's $15,000, we do $15,000 in repairs. NuView. Hard money sends out the inspector to confirm those repairs have been done. We then request those $15,000 be reimbursed to your operations account for another $15,000 in additional repairs. Hard money then puts those funds back into your account, and we go do $15,000 or more in repairs. So that's essentially how that works. That slide's not supposed to be there. Okay, so we talk about why we love Savannah so much and why we're so confident it is probably one of the best markets in the country right now, if not the best. Charleston, South Carolina came through the last recession smelling like roses. And the reason they did is, and we're following the exact same model. The reason they did is two things. Boeing moved in to start building the 787, and MUSC, Medical University of South Carolina, started expanding their campus by buying up all the dilapidated commercial properties around the city and converting them into the campus and the future medical facilities of the business. With that, obviously, flippers and investors started buying up all the residential properties to house the students, to house the doctors, and it just essentially created this growth of urban renewal and urban improvement. And with that, the city started providing lots of grants and improvement projects and so on, to the point where in 2019, Charleston was doing a lot of studies and a lot of reports comparing it to South Carolina, San Francisco, with regards to how it was becoming so unaffordable to the working class, that you couldn't afford to live there unless you were making $800,000 a year. So Savannah is essentially on that same track. They're just about 12 years behind. They're in the 6th year of what I would call a 17-year run. Now, what Savannah has going for it is they have Savannah College of Art and Design and a few more other things we're going to talk about in a minute. So to prove my point, which was 6 years ago when I was saying Savannah was recession proof, and here's Charleston, and this is why. Last year I was doing webinars on, oh boy, I'm gonna have to put my money where my mouth is, because I've been saying this for 6 years, and now let's see what's going to happen. Well, Charleston, 3rd quarter of 2020 was one of 10 cities in the country that nearly doubled a price again during the COVID crisis, because everybody's flocking down to the Southeast and these other counties around the country. So my theory was correct. Charleston was the first and only city to receive the top vacation destination in the country 10 years in a row. Savannah has been in the top 10 for the last 12 years. So it's following the trends. So again, Savannah has SCAD, which is Savannah College of Art and Design. Now that sounds like a small school. It doesn't sound like a big medical university like Medical University of South Carolina, but SCAD has a campus in Atlanta. They used to have one in Hong Kong. They have a campus in Lacoste, France. and one other one that is escaping me at the moment, but yeah, another one somewhere else. They're a very big, very rich private school. They're building a movie studio in Savannah now. Very, very big school. Condé Nast, named number 4 small city by Condé Nast. Atlanta-based real estate firm you see in the bottom left corner of your screen there. Flips child apartment buildings to SCAD. So like I said, they're doing the exact same thing that MUSC did. They're buying all the dilapidated buildings around Savannah and they're converting those into the campus and they're converting them into student housing. So all we're doing is we're following SCAD. Anywhere SCAD buys, we buy. And we're ahead of the curve. So we buy dirt cheap, we fix up and we resell for really, really good profits. So we're going to talk about more of those. Well, we're not going to talk about those anymore. You've seen the profits. So again, why Savannah? With all these cities that are comparable, we had the 2nd largest per capita city for sold properties in 2020. And that's comparing cities like Atlanta, Birmingham, Alabama, Nashville, Tennessee. Nashville has been in the top 5 for the last 5 years. We beat Nashville, Tennessee. That's amazing. And that's why, as I said in the beginning of this broadcast, my wife has been the top sales agent, one of the top 3 sales agents in these regions, for the last 5 months. So it's just, for our small little city, we're just absolutely killing it. For the last 5 years, Savannah market's appreciation has been 12.7% or higher. I can't wait to see the numbers when they come out for 2020. Or I should say even better for the first half of 2021. I think they're just going to be absolutely astounding just from what we're seeing on a day-to-day basis. Houses right now stay on the market an average of 11 days. Savannah neighborhoods have grown by as much as 33%. Rents in Savannah, as I mentioned that earlier, have grown by as much as 33% in the last 3 years. Triple the state average. And yes, we're seeing this as well. As I showed you in that previous slide, there is nothing to rent right now. I mentioned that we sold our house out from under ourselves. We sold our house out from under ourselves and we didn't have anything else to buy and we didn't have anything else to rent. We had to be out on a Monday. We finally found something the Friday before. It was absolute garbage, and we're paying $6,000 a month for it. It was the only thing we could find, and they knew it was the only thing we could find. We were desperate, and that's what we ended up doing. But this is what Savannah's trends are doing right now. According to Savannah Renewal Authority, this is Savannah's population's growth is set to grow by 37% by 2033. We're actually ahead of this curve right now. This is growing faster than this is even shown. And reason for that, again, thank you, COVID. People are just flocking down from the Northeast in droves because now everybody is working from home. You no longer have to go to the office. Everyone is working from home now. So, and that is the new trend. We're not going to go back to having to be in the office. Zoom is taking over. I am in the office, but even I, being less than 5 minutes from my office, tend to work from home now more than I ever have before. Savannah's port is on track to be the largest port by 2033 in the nation. And that is really what's the driving force behind all of this growth. So you see all these trends, why the population is going to be so big, and why everything's kind of coming up is the port is set to be the biggest port in the entire nation. Yes, bigger than Long Beach. Yes, bigger than Miami. Bigger than all of them. It's coming. So we see us being able to ride this out for the next 12 years. And then the opportunity that is Savannah will no longer exist. So that's why we are boots on the ground, the biggest distressed buyer and renovator of properties in Savannah. So we are the biggest game in town. And again, it wasn't here 6 years ago. It just happened to be in our backyard. Savannah Renewal Authority stepped up their game, and we just happened to be here doing a few at the time. We were big in the taxing business at the time. We were doing other markets in North Carolina, and things really just popped off for us. And we focused all of our attention back into the Savannah market. Brought all our crews out of some of the North Carolina and Florida and Illinois markets we were doing, and focused all of our attention here, and have been. Savannah has, again, I mentioned, a great renewal program. It's called the Dream Makers Project. Things have been going so well for us in the 100+ flips we do a year. We have only taken advantage of the Dream Makers Project one time. But it is a great program. In certain areas, Savannah offers up to $60,000 for new home buyers against their mortgage. There's obviously some red tape for that, but it's a great program for the renewal. And if you come to Savannah, I'm happy to ride around with you and show you just how amazing the renewal of the city is. It's astounding. It's not like anything you'll see anywhere else in the country. So this is just another illustration of what's going on. The building on the bottom left is the one I mentioned in that article. That's what SCAD has bought recently. The top right picture, these are dormitories that SCAD just finished up about 6 months ago. And then the bottom right picture is it was an 8-bedroom, 4-bath quadruplex that we bought. We converted it to a 16-bedroom, 8-bath quadruplex, which is 2 blocks from the SCAD picture you see above. So we bought it, I believe, for about $250,000. All in will be at about probably about $950,000 when it's all said and done, and it'll easily be worth about $1.5 million. If not more. And we are buying all around this area as SCAD is moving into the area as well. So we talked about why Savannah. We've been touching on this. Airlines obviously use certain metrics to determine what cities they're going to start committing to. In November 2020, Southwest announced 5 new direct flights. They've actually amped that up to 9 now. Southwest has never been in Savannah. So when you have a new airline coming into a new city, they know something. And when you have new passengers coming to a new city, that brings new residents, new tourists, more revenue, more permanent residents. So they know something that's going on. Georgia Tech is in the process of getting final approval for a new movie studio to be the 2nd largest behind Hollywood, of course, to come to Savannah. Obviously, when you have a movie studio of that size and capacity in a little city like Savannah, you have more tourists, more permanent residents, more growth. So just these are things that have just come up in the last year, even though I've been saying for the last 6 years why Savannah is recession proof. And the biggest and the best, which just happened about 3 weeks ago, I had no idea it was out there. Dylan, our marketing director, sent a text on a Saturday morning about 8:30. I was sleeping. My wife woke me up and said, "Did you see Dylan's text?" And I said, "No, it's 8:30 in the morning. I'm sleeping." And it was announced that Amazon was building a 650,000 square foot fulfillment center in Savannah. Now, a lot of you may or may not recall about a year ago the absolute frenzy that was created when Amazon was whispering about putting a fulfillment center in Raleigh and in New York and in Virginia, and how investors in real estate just were starting to flock to those areas just on the rumor of something like that happening. Well, this is actually happening. So beginning of 2022, Amazon will be in Savannah with a fulfillment center. And again, we are the biggest game in town right now, and have been for the last 6 years. So this is just great news for us. They're going to be on the west side of the city. That's the area that has the most inventory of opportunity. So guess where we're headed? We've been going into the west side of the city for about a year now. So we will continue to grow in that direction. So we talk about power in numbers. I keep saying we're the biggest game in town. We like to buy and convert blocks. By doing that, when an appraiser goes out to a property and does an appraisal, he's appraising our properties as a comparable. You have two properties here. One's a duplex and one's a single family home. So they don't necessarily match up as appraisals, but they're both our properties. But when he does do an appraisal, he's looking at everything that we are buying or selling. So these are all our homes, whether sold, listed, or under renovation. This is just a snapshot of the last 18 months of what we've done in one particular area. They call these the state streets for the obvious. They're all state streets. We love the state streets because we're literally changing the demographics of the entire area. And we're doing this all over the city like this. You know, you're able to increase the values considerably because when an appraiser goes in there again and pulls comps, he's pulling our comps. So, you know, if it's sold for 189 and we've got something else listed for 185, you know, somebody may say, oh, no, that's only worth 165. Well, no, because we sold this one for 189, or we have these other four listed for 185. So that's power in numbers. You're able to do that. That quad I showed you, that 16, 18 bath quad I showed you, we have at least 12 other properties under renovation right now within a block, within 2 streets of each other. So there's literally a snapshot of that that's all over the place. I've already mentioned this to you, so I'm just going to skip through this. But you know, there's my wife, number 2 in April. She was number 3 in May. She was number 5, I believe, in June. So now let's look at how the numbers break down. I know I'm starting to run a little long in the two, so let's look at the numbers. So this is actually a report that is produced from Hard Money. So I want you to look at cash to close and total cash needed. So these are the numbers that you have to have in a personal account for this investment, this property here. So before we look at the spreadsheet, let's look on the left at what you made. Now the client net profit doesn't seem like much. It was only $13,000, but you know, it was still a 49% return. And you didn't have to invest that much. So it was a low commitment. So in a personal account, you needed to have, from your SDIRA, you could use $23,907.50. But you also needed to have that in a personal account. Also in a personal account, you needed to have $45,255.81. You needed to have that in that account for 2 months. So that's what they're going to look at. So that needs to be there. Now you can use all of your SDIRA money for this particular investment, but you're going to need to also have that amount in a personal account. That's what Hard Money wants to see. Now, the way the paperwork and everything is structured, we handle that for you to make sure that all those numbers jive and work out and that everybody's okay with compliance and everything else. So you can see that the way that breaks down your after repair value, your ARV, I'm up at the top of this now, the purchase price and everything, the total cost of the investment is $108,000. So all you actually have to bring to the table is $23,907.50. You can see the monthly payment, that's your interest-only loan, the rate of it, 7.99%, and the term, 12 months. So we have to be in and out of this in 12 months. So what happens if we don't get in and out in 12 months? Because things happen. You can extend it 3 times at 3 months apiece. So you can actually extend it up to another 9 months, essentially, for 1% of your loan value, which is $108,000. So that is the breakdown of how those numbers work. Here's another one. Now this one is a really good one. Because look at your cash to close. Look what you need to close on this particular investment. You only need $9,713. But because the rehab expenses are so extensive, you actually need to show in your account $40,935.47. But look what your net profit is on that. It's insane, right? So again, you've got some fees coming in and out. Looking at these, I want you to look at these because I only see one question so far, and that's insane. Somebody should be asking, what is a rehab feasibility study? Nobody's asking what that is. A feasibility study is, okay, tell me how you're going to get this property to have an after repair value of $205,000. I want to know how you're going to get that. That's what a rehab feasibility study is. So we have to essentially put together a budget of everything down to washer and dryer, the type of floors we use, everything. We put all that together. And then we have to come up with comparables. And then somebody's going to go out there and say, okay, I see how they came up with this. And then they're going to compare that to our experience and say, okay, yeah, these guys can make that happen. So if you come up with that number and you just do a pie in the sky idea, and your rehab feasibility study doesn't match up, you're not going to get the loan. So, that's something to think of as well. Due diligence, I'm not going to cover a lot of this. This is just essentially everything that we do in our portion of the investment, everything that makes it passive, if you will. But there's a lot involved in it. Acquisitions, all the skip tracing we do. A lot of people think fix and flips are easy. They're not at all. It is not the pretty picture you see on HGTV 24/7. There's a lot of work to it. There's hours upon hours upon hours just looking for the investments themselves, making sure that they're going to pan out, and making sure that they're going to be profitable. Renovations, our biggest headache, always is contractors. We are constantly looking for contractors, new contractors, because even the best of the best, they last about 18 months, and they become complacent. They get very used to getting paid every Friday and getting cushy, and their work starts to slip and they start to pad their hours, and things go bad. So it's a very difficult job to be profitable in this business. It's not easy. So that's all what that is. Building relationships with city and county officials. I'm meeting with code enforcement guys tomorrow because they have been cracking down like crazy. So we're dealing with that tomorrow. And with that, Nate, I am pretty much wrapped up here. If you want to address questions, I'm just going to go through a few slides while we tackle those.
Yeah.
And my info here is here. info@pipgroup.com goes to me. Charles@pipgroup.com goes to me. And I'll just kind of roll through some of these slides as we talk.
Awesome. And we got some great questions. What I'll do is a lot of these are specific to you, Charles. If you want to just answer them, there's some in the Q&A and there was one in the chat if you want to just do that. I'll look at this one from Jody Hill. So PIP Group handles all of the purchase of real estate, repairs and sale of the property, and draws money from your self-directed IRA to facilitate the process. Yeah, so for anybody that's new, and that's been a common question, what Charles is going over is just some examples of how they've used self-directed IRAs in a variety of ways to help acquire these properties. Now, one thing that I really like that Charles touched on that I'll kind of drive home is touched on the actual social implications of the investments, which I think is really important for people that have a retirement capital and they're looking for an investment. A lot of this is numbers, and numbers are great. Profit is great. But at the end of the day, when anybody does an investment, especially with your retirement account, I think it's really important to ask what else is it doing for the community. When I'm looking at these pictures, that Charles is showing, and I can never, as the director of a self-directed IRA company, I can never endorse Charles or endorse his investments. But when I'm looking at his pictures of the before and after, the first thing that I'm picturing is the end buyer, the family that's getting this newly renovated home, the community or the neighborhood that this old eyesore was in, how much better it feels to live in that community. What I like about, some of the things that Charles touched on is the ability to take retirement accounts and not only make profit from them passively, but also make a positive impact in the community. And I think that really shows you something, because real estate investors, like Charles and otherwise, are really the ones that are taking a lot of risk on and going in and identifying areas of opportunity, but taking eyesores out of the neighborhood and making them great properties for an end buyer, which is providing the American dream to somebody. So thank you, Charles, for sharing all that information. If you wouldn't mind kind of answering some of the questions in the chat and the Q&A. And yes, there will be a copy of the recording. If you registered for it, you'll get an automatic email within a week. Once we polish up the video, we'll send that out to you. You can always watch the recording on Facebook. As soon as it's ended, it lives forever on our Facebook channel, and then we'll also post it to our YouTube. So there's plenty of areas you can always go back to watch it if you don't get the email with the actual recording. One thing else I want to mention too, and you can switch it to my slides if you want, but one thing else I want to mention too is, there's a lot of areas of opportunity. I learned a lot about Savannah. It's actually one of the places that I've been meaning to visit that I haven't been able to visit. It's on my bucket list. I know I recently moved to Orlando, Florida. There's a lot of people moving to Florida. About 1,000 people a week are moving to Florida. So you got a lot of people that are migrating, whether it's job opportunity, more affordable housing and things like that. And if you're a beginner, I'll give you a little hint. If you're thinking of investing outside of maybe your state, or, trying to find out where hot areas are, I'll tell you a resource that you can go to. U-Haul. Check U-Haul rates. It's a great, easy way to find out if an area is hot or not. Take two cities. And while Charles was talking, I just took New York City, and we all know people are moving out of New York, but this is just good for comparison. I took New York City and Savannah. Okay. I looked up what the U-Haul rate was to go from New York to Savannah. Guess how much? $2,020 for a 10-foot trailer or a 10-foot truck. Okay. To go from Savannah to New York, $550. They'll pay you to bring that truck back to New York, because that's where people are. So if you want to follow a company that does millions and millions and millions of dollars of research to figure out their rental rates, just check U-Haul. It's a great thing to do there. So just want to throw that out there. And I just want to wrap this up and talk about the IRAs for a second, and how you can invest in these things. So we have a lot of new viewers. I highly encourage new viewers to continue to watch our content. We have a lot of current clients that are already using their self-directed IRAs to invest in alternative assets. But Charles is important in the sense that with a self-directed IRA, remember, you are the self. You have to find your own investments. And one of the biggest ways to find investments is to have access to deal flow, right? The PIP group offers access to deal flow. Now, that's not me endorsing the PIP group. Don't get that mistaken. But when you have a self-directed IRA, you need to know where there are access to deals. So in the event that you don't have access to deals, well, where are some other places where you can have access to deals? So for me, myself, I get the opportunity to travel, on NuView's buck to talk to investors all over the country. So I get to meet different investors, and I get to decide for myself who I want to use my IRA to invest with. And that's something that every self-directed IRA investor would like to do. So just understand, you can invest in all sorts of assets too. It's not just real estate. You can invest in all types of real estate, but you can invest through notes. Charles touched on both and how they can actually structure deals where you can either have your IRA as an owner, or your IRA can be a passive lender. You can invest through private entities. A lot of times, if you're buying bigger investments, commercial property, multifamily property, you could use your IRA to be a shareholder in an LLC or some other entity. And there's much more. The IRS does not tell us what we are allowed to invest in with our IRA. They only tell us what we're not allowed to invest in with our IRA. And the list's really short. Life insurance contracts and collectibles. That's it. Anything else is fair game. So I think when you have a IRA, self-direct is just a marketing term, but when you have an individual retirement account, ask yourself the question, what do I want to invest in? Do I want to invest in some nameless mutual fund that does whatever, and I don't even know what kind of social impact that mutual fund has on my own community? Or do I want to take a little bit more control of my retirement assets, invest in a community that means something to me, whether it's your own community or a community like SAVANNAH? But also, what are the other social implications of your investments? Besides making a good return and doing it safely and securely, what other impact is it making? I think that's really important. And alternative assets are one of those investments that you can actually see the results of your IRA investments. You can see it through, the pictures of the before and the after of the investment that you funded. You can see it in the happy faces of the family that get to move into a home that's newly renovated. It's just a great, great thing. And like I said in the beginning, alternative assets are one of the major, asset classes in IRAs valued above $5 million. So not only if you do it right, can it be profitable, but it's also socially responsible. And that's the one thing I really like about the product that we provide here is you can tie those all in together. And remember this, I always put this up as a reminder because even current clients need a reminder sometimes. There's 7 types of plans that you can use to self-direct. It's not just a traditional IRA or even a Roth IRA. If you're self-employed, we have employer plans that you can stash larger amounts of money in through contributions, which would be SEP IRAs, simple IRAs, or even have your own solo 401k, which is a great tax wealth building tool if you are self-employed. But even if you're not self-employed, there's other options for you to get Uncle Sam out of your pocket when it comes to making money in real estate or other alternative assets. And that's using your health savings account or education savings accounts for kids and grandkids. I'll tell you a deal that I'm working on right now is using my Roth IRA in combination with my health savings account and my 2 nieces' Coverdell education savings account. We're going to those accounts are going to borrow money through a non-recourse loan from an IRA lender, and they're all going to own a percentage of ownership of rental property. And each month that renter is going to pay back my IRA's rent. Those rents are going to help pay down the mortgage. The appreciation of the property is going to kick in, as long as I hold the property. But the reason why I bring that up is that I'm partnering different tax advantaged accounts together that fit different purposes. My Roth IRA is just for later. My health savings account, I can take the profit out of that immediately to pay for out-of-pocket health expenses with tax-free dollars. I also get tax deductions when I make contributions to a health savings account. A lot of people just make contributions to their HSAs. Maybe their company set it up for them just to get the tax deduction. And I'm surprised how many people don't invest it. They just leave it in cash. You can invest those accounts and the profit is completely tax-free to pay for current needs like health expenses. And the education savings account, another great tool where you can put in $2,000 per child per year in that account. You can partner into PIP deals, loans, private money loans, any alternative asset you find. But the profit comes back pro rata to the education savings account that can be used immediately to pay for qualified education expenses with tax-free dollars. And those are education expenses from kindergarten all the way through college. So if you're paying things like doctor's visits, health or acupuncture, vision, dental, prescriptions, and you're also paying as a parent tuition, uniforms, books, computers, your home internet, those are all expenses that can be paid with tax-free dollars out of those specialty plans. Instead of what most people use to pay for those expenses is the money in their back pocket, which is their taxable income. So if you have a rise in your health expenses, a rise in your education expenses, and you're using the money in your back pocket, that means you got to work more hours to pay more taxes to consume more goods. Instead, consume more goods by making the money that you're earning tax-free, not taxable. Take the money out of your back pocket, and instead of paying those expenses, make contributions to a health savings account. Make contributions to each of your child's education savings account. Invest them in the same investments you can do, but you eliminate the taxes because these are all tax advantage trusts that Uncle Sam can't touch if you use them right. So if you can take that concept and apply it to things like real estate, where you're also getting a social benefit and you're making returns, you'll find that you have more money left over because you get Uncle Sam out of the pocket. This is the legal way to stick it to the government with their own rules, is just by understanding this. And this is why I'm so passionate about this, because I wish I knew about this stuff 10 years before I did. And every time I talk to an investor that has a self-directed IRA, it's the same thing. Don't you wish you learned about self-directed IRAs 10 years ago? And everybody nods yes. Some people will say, I wish I learned about it 30 years ago. So again, using tax advantage accounts to invest in alternative assets is just a great, great thing. And they can be partnered together, which is where all the power happens. How you take title to real estate, I'm not going to really go too much over this because there's a lot of different structures you can use. Most importantly, what I want to say is, any investment, it doesn't take a fancy setup. The reason I put this up there is that there's a lot of misinformation online. If you read, self-directed IRAs in real estate, that you have to set up an LLC or a partnership or joint venture. You don't have to do any of that. IRAs are their own entity. And when you take them to either be a lender or take them to own property, you just use the IRA's name as the lender or the owner. Charles is probably very familiar with doing that. But don't get confused with that. This has to be confusing. An IRA can directly own real estate. An IRA can be the lender on a note. That's actually how I do it. I don't set up LLCs, partnerships, joint ventures, or trusts. Sometimes it's just a waste of money. But again, I'm not an investment advisor, so do it how you want to do it. But when you break it down, it's really easy to take those 7 accounts and invest them, especially with a company like NuView that's been doing it, for about 17 years now. So always talk to one of my IRA specialists. And right now, if you guys are interested in opening more tax advantaged accounts that can buy real estate or all other alternative assets, we've got a special promo where we're waiving all account opening fees for any account that you want to open. All you have to do is just email info@nuviewtrust.com. If you want to take a part of that free account, just say, hey, Nate, I want my free account, and we'll have someone reach back out to you. Just make sure you include your phone number. But I want to make that offer out there to everybody. It expires at the end of this month. So talk to one of my IRA specialists. You can schedule a free consultation if you want more information, but we are doing that offer for anybody that's looking up to open accounts. And this goes for current clients as well. Okay. Follow us, continue to follow us, NuView Trust on YouTube, NuView Trust on Facebook, and our website. We're actually adding a educational content page on our website that'll have all of our videos as well. And from that point on, I want to see if we've got some questions to take here. How do I get it to where I can see the other questions, Maggie? Maggie is the one that actually makes this whole ship run. By the way, you guys can't see her, but if I didn't have her, this whole thing would blow up. So let's see here. UBIT. Okay, I'll get to that in a second. Let's see. Can Charles describe again the role that the self-directed IRA investor plays on this type of flips for example scenario 2? Do you remember sample example 2, Charles, and how you can explain that, how the IRA is involved?
I don't remember example 2, but there's essentially 2 models. So you can be an investor and invest like in a cash model where your entire self-directed IRA owns 100% of the investment, and essentially we get a performance bonus at the end of the investment. Or if you're using part of it as hard money or part of the investment and you're using hard money, then we are the guarantor of the investment, and we're essentially set up as partners. So it's set up like a JV, like a joint venture deal.
So you guys are basically, you're the deal finder. You guys have got access to deals. Yep. The IRA is the actual owner. And then for your piece in helping manage it, helping find it and do all that stuff, you guys just take a piece of the action. Yep. And then it's completely passive for the IRA investor. And I think based on what I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys even put your own capital into a deal to convert a garage into another bedroom or something to that effect.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah. If we find that it's gonna profit out better, we'll put our own capital into it. Yep.
Got it. Awesome. Okay. So here's a question that I'll take. Is there any UBIT tax issues or anything that with fix and flips? So UBIT stands for unrelated business income tax. Unrelated business income tax is a tax an IRA would have to pay if it's invested in certain styles of investment. Now, one of those investments is owning a business. Now, in this case, doing a flip isn't necessarily owning a business. What they mean by owning a business is, is your IRA ownership of an operating business that's in competition with other businesses? Then it just becomes a business owner, and the IRS doesn't want people to run businesses free of tax, because then it would just create monopolies. Everybody would buy ownership in businesses with their IRAs. The other thing when it comes to real estate is if your IRA owns debt leveraged property. So that would be that my IRA is the owner, but there's debt on the property. Either you bought it and assumed the debt that's already on the property, or you bought it and acquired debt. There are banks that have IRA loans. I always tell people, if your IRA is buying debt leveraged property, remember, you're only subject to UBIT to the extent that you borrow. So whatever percent you borrow, you just have to split that percentage with Uncle Sam. That doesn't make it bad. It just means that you got to share a little bit of the profit. But if there's no loan involved, then you don't have to worry about UBIT at all. So it doesn't matter, fix and flip, buy and hold. If the IRA is just the cash owner and there's no other liens on the property, then you don't have to worry about UBIT. But great question, Leo. Let's see, Leo reach out. Okay, you answered Leo there. And then again, I've seen a couple people ask, is there going to be a recording? Yes, we always have the recording online, and we send it out to anybody that registers. So in the future too, if you guys want copies of the recordings and you don't have time to watch it, just register for it and you'll get an email the following week with the actual recording. Here's another question. I'll pass this to you, Charles, on partnership. Grantor of loan means in the worst case, the investor would get their loan amount back, ?
Yes.
Easy answer. I love that. Easy answer. And then Leo, so is there UBIT with a hard money loan debt? So if you're, and I just want to clarify if I'm hearing this right, if your IRA is the lender, there's never UBIT. You cannot be subject to UBIT if your IRA is just a lender. If your IRA owns the property and there's a hard money debt or loan from another entity, then it is subject to UBIT. So the question is, if your IRA owns the property and has debt on it, then you'd be subject to UBIT. But if your IRA is the debt, if your IRA is the lender, then you don't have to worry about that tax whatsoever. That's one of the reasons I like being a lender, because I can still make, double-digit returns being a lender. That's just how I like to do it. At the end of the day, you have to be passive with your IRA, so you shouldn't be active anyways. And I don't necessarily, like paying UBIT, but again, one of the investments that I'm looking to do is partnering my 401k. I'll make that correction, not my Roth 401k with my HSA and my ESA. So I'll tell you, with that transaction, the HSA and the ESAs will be subject to a little bit of tax because we're going to borrow money for the transaction. But my 401k, it's a little unique. 401ks have an exemption to unrelated debt finance income tax. If I'm getting over anybody's head, don't worry. It took me a long time to learn this stuff too. So if you have any questions on any of this, I'd love to have a conversation with you. Just email me at again, info@NuViewTrust.com, and we can schedule a call if you want to talk specifically to me and wrap your head around some of this stuff. I love having conversations about this. It gets my day rolling. So Charles, any cascading messages? I want to thank you for being a part of it. It was very informative. Anything you want to leave the crowd with or the audience with?
No, I think that's pretty much it. There was a lot of questions of, are we looking for loans or anything like that? No. So I want to touch on why we do what we do and why we do it. So how I got into my business was I was actually working for somebody who is investing on behalf of investors in tax liens. And he was kind of a pitch man in the industry, and like a lot of other pitch men out there, was pitching a pie in the sky idea. And like most pie in the skies, it wasn't based in reality. So my goal in life was to provide realistic opportunities and realistic circumstances to, provide realistic results. So yes, we are looking for investors. We're not looking for loans. We're looking to do legitimate deals on behalf of investors and do it passively for investors. So you can actually really make money rather than the junk that's out there. So yeah, we're looking for partners. We're not looking for loans. We have plenty of investors out there. I'd say, if anything, I like to educate. We're not desperate for investors, but if you're interested to do this, we definitely are a great game in town, and we're happy to provide you with all the information that you can possibly stand but we're not here to hard sell you on anything. If you just want to learn, we've got a lot of data, a lot of webinars out there, and you're happy to pick our brains. You're never going to get a hard sell from us.
Awesome. I'll ask this if you don't mind, Charles. We have this on our Facebook page. I know you guys are pretty active on there. For anybody that wants to reach out to Charles or the PIP group, maybe just post your website or contact information in the comment section of the Facebook page. And if anybody has any questions specific for me, just email info@NuViewTrust.com. Those come directly to me, and we can set up a quick call, or I could just, if the question is an easy one, I'll just reply back to you guys. But appreciate everybody's time. Appreciate all the great questions, and follow us again, and we'll see you guys next Wednesday on the #1 self-directed IRA program in the nation. So thanks again, guys. And thanks again, Charles, for spending some time with us today.
Awesome. Thanks, Nate.